welcome to another episode of Crown Jewels, a journey through the Queen catalog. I am PLD. Happy to have you here with us for track number 4 of the self-titled debut album back in 1973. This time, we're talking about My Fairy King. That's right, it's My Fairy King, written by the great Freddie Mercury, featuring Freddie on lead vocals and piano, Brian May on electric guitar and acoustic guitars, also on backing vocals, John Deacon on the bass guitar, and Roger Taylor on drums and backing vocals. Now, personally, I love this song. I love it. This is the type of song that separated Queen from the hard rock pack in the 70s. As much as I love the 70s rock, it was kind of cool to have this very different operatic classical sound, some great vocals, high vocals, some great piano riffing. This is a fun song. This is a very fun song. We'll take some quick notes before we actually take a stop, pause, and listen to it. I'll come back and break it down. The first note there, it's inspired obviously by the Robert Browning poem, The Pied Piper of Hamelin. You'll get to hear that in the lyrics as well. This is a seminal track. It's the first track that's in a road that will lead eventually to Bohemian Rhapsody. From this album through Queen 2, through Sheer Heart Attack, Freddie kind of grows with his use of the piano, use of the operatic stuff. It eventually leads to where Bohemian Rhapsody is. This right here is that very first step in that journey. This is actually the first time Freddie used a piano on recording. Doing All Right actually had piano, but that was played by Brian May. This is the first time the band wrote a track in the studio due to having that piano in the studio. Brian really noted during this song how rhythmic Freddie's piano playing was, like noting that it was definitely more like an extra rhythmic piece with the bass and the drums. Brian used to notate over and over how much he did love Freddie's playing for that. This is also the first track that really showcases Roger's range in backing vocals. A lot of people don't realize that as high as Freddie's voice got, a lot of times those really high moments, like the one in Bohemian Rhapsody, for example, at the very end, the "To Me," is actually Roger Taylor. He did a lot of those high tracks. You see that showcased in the film Bohemian Rhapsody. This is that first time you really get to see that in action. Another part of this song, if you listen to the lyrics, this is the song that really shows where Freddie's name gets changed from Freddie Balsera to Freddie Mercury. Mother Mercury, look what they've done to me. This also was a prime example of the mythological worlds that Freddie were creating in his songs based on some of the stuff he did as a child with his sister Kashmir. They used to create this whole world called Rye. This was one of those songs that feature that world. Finally, let's talk really quickly about the live versions. I wish I had a lot to talk about. There are rumors of this track having been played, but nothing substantial has ever been released. It's definitely not released on any official live album. I've never heard it on any bootleg. I've never seen it listed on any bootleg. I can't say for sure it wasn't played live, especially considering there are tracks that were also thought not to have been played live for like years and years, but that were proven false, such as Ferry Feller's Master Stroke from Queen 2. But no bootleg recording that I know exists so far with My Fairy King on it. The closest we got was during the 1984 and 85 tour. There was a medley of songs, and at one point, Freddie kind of improvised, and you could tell it was the basis of it was from this song. It wasn't exactly the same. Obviously, he hadn't played it in years, but it didn't last very long before he moved on to the next song in the medley. But that's all we got. So for right now, we got this track, and we have the alternative release version, which is the BBC session from February of 1973. But before we do any further on that, let's stop, pause here. Let's listen to the Queen album version. Of course, you can find all the YouTubes in the description below. Let's listen to that first album version. We'll come back, we'll break it down, and then we'll go on and we'll listen to the BBC version. So pause it right now, and we'll be right back. All right, and you're back? Excellent. What a track. I always forget how much I like that song, and then I listen to it. I'm like, wow. Let's get right into it. Right away, you have the nice guitar work. Brian again using both sides of the stereo. One side is a little clip of the song, the other side is more of a movement from the guitar work. You hear Freddie start coming with the piano, and then the drums start coming in. Then you get hit with that big high Roger squeal, a couple of them. It goes really high up there. It's like, wow, holy shit, this guy can sing, right? Then they bring Freddie, comes in as a falsetto voice. The lead vocal is pretty much almost all in falsetto, with some great washing over harmonies. As the band is just well known for, left and right, they come in the right moments. And they fade out really quickly in order to focus on Freddie's falsetto voice. Another trick Freddie uses in this song to me. I say trick, but it's a nice little tool he uses. He adds some lower vocals as counterpoint. that really become effective against his falsetto. He kind of comes in and out with his lower voice, lower in his range, and it really adds a little bit of a bass to it. Gets some more Roger squealing going on. The whole song is about Roger squealing, it seems. Also, the song gets more frenetic, right? The bouncy bass comes in, the piano and drums get a little more chaotic, a little more frenetic, and then all of a sudden it drops into this breakdown with the bass and guitar, some dueling vocals back and forth, Freddie bouncing his voice from not just like right to left, it's like front, back, right, left, adding a line here, answering a line there before it's even done, and then going back to the original line. A lot of chaos. The song is very, very truly chaotic at its best, and then but it always seems to come and go, right? It gets very chaotic, then it breaks it down and pulls it back and lets you get that rest for a moment. Because right there, right at this moment, like I said, it stops, it becomes extremely melodic. All of a sudden, the bass and drums are all gone. It's just Freddie sitting at a piano and it's just a little meandering, right? It's kind of being back and forth, swinging low, and then but it has this great. I don't know what you would call it necessarily. It's hurry up and stop. It's this moment where the piano starts to get a little faster and the voice goes along with it, and then it slows down to a little bit behind the beat. It never quite stays on the beat, but it's like purposefully done. It's definitely something that's a choice. It's not Freddie being off rhythm at all. It really feels like this is meant to be. It adds to the chaotic feeling. It's great. Brian then starts adding some lead guitar towards the end, and the song Freddie's piano gets a little more wandering, got a little more notes here and there. And as it builds to a climactic end, the drums get frenetic, the bass gets chaotic, the piano, they all get faster, 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 until this big climactic moment, and it just mellows down to this soft, angelic type ending, kind of like how Bohemian Rhapsody would end, really. And that's how the song ends. It's a very, very chaotic song. I hope you like that one as much as I do. But for now, let's move on and talk about the BBC session from February of 1973. I'm going to have you pause now. We'll take a listen to that, and we'll be right back. And we're back. I did mention a couple of times in previous episodes how for BBC sessions, at least some of them, Queen would often use the backing track and then just add a couple more things on top of it. So it really is almost more of a remix than anything else. This one did have a new Freddie vocal. I think there might have been a little extra guitar work. It's hard to say because that was the main difference in the original backing track that they used. That the guitar was definitely louder in the mix, definitely easier to pick out. I'm not sure it was because of the production value of it, or if it was a little more of an additional Brian May on there. I actually think it was not new Brian May. I think it was mostly just the original track, just played with a little bit. So otherwise, that's really all there was one new Freddie vocal, and not a whole lot was new there either, to be honest with you. So there we go. And unlike any the other tracks so far, we have no unreleased versions that we know of. There's no officially released live versions, and there's no like unreleased and unheard versions. That's it. We got the two tracks. Is there something that does exist in the vault somewhere? Potentially. But I don't really know anything about it, so I can't say anything about it. So it comes down to this: what do I rank this song? Rate this song rather, and how do I rank the two tracks? Which one is my crown jewel? We'll start with the rating. Again, like I said, every time I listen to this song, I love it more and more. This is a solid 10 for me. It does get even a little better as we go along. Obviously, it's not quite Bohemian Rhapsody level yet, but it's a great start and probably one of the most unique tracks on the album, showcasing what Queen's potential really is. So I'd like to go back to this one quite a bit. But which one is it? Which one is my crown jewel? Is it the album version or the BBC session from February of 1973? I haven't picked an album version yet, and so I do have to wonder if I'm a little bit biased towards hearing some non-album versions, some different alternate versions, because I've heard the album version so much. Is it only because it's newer in my ears? I prefer the BBC session sometimes, or the alternative mixed versions. I don't know, maybe. But I'm going to go that way again. I think I would pick the BBC version on this one a little bit, just a smidge more, only because I can hear Brian May's guitar a little bit more clearly, a little less muddy sound. The vocals are pretty much a wash. There's good things in both, great things in both, to be honest with you. The only thing I could really hear a big difference on sometimes was that the Mother Mercury line goes up in the album. It kind of goes down in the BBC version. Either way, both great tracks. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to name my crown jewel the BBC session from February of 1973. And there you have it, folks. A little bit of a quicker episode this time. Not as much to talk about. That'll change next week because we deal with a song called Liar, which has a lot more to talk about, a lot more versions to pick into. I hope you loved it as much as I do, and I hope you're here next week for the next track. Now, before we go, I just have a little plug to make. If you want to find me on Twitter, at Paul_Denuzio on Twitter. If you want to support the podcast, patreon.com/PLD Projects. You can find a lot of different content on there, some extra content coming from me and PJ Campbell, me and the Scoundrels, and maybe some listening Zooms where I get to listen to these Queen tracks with you, maybe tell you a little more, maybe stuff I forgot while doing the episode. Who knows, right? One thing I do want to say, I have to shout out a few of my patrons. They've joined us here where I'm going to be able to shout out their names, and they've given me some of the highest support that I can be given, and I'm so appreciative. I can't thank these people enough. I have my producers, Kelly W., John Lestrina, and Jeff Alterman. And then, of course, I got my executive producer, Brandon Buckingham. Thanks, guys. I couldn't do it without you. Stay tuned next time. Same channel, same place, new track. God save the Queen, everybody.